Vice President Kamala Harris goes full anti-vaccine. We look at the rise of bullying in Muslim communities and whether it's actually real. And then the walls are closing in on Trump after his impeachment regarding Russiagate. This story, for whatever reason, is still being reported, and we're going to do a deep dive into that. It's your May 6th Not So News update. Please like and subscribe if you're looking for daily news content, and let's dive on in. Starting us off from Twitter, we have from Ryan Saavedra that Vice President Kamala Harris kisses her husband while both of them are wearing masks. I'm sorry, but this might be one of the cringiest things I've ever seen. Both of them wearing masks as they go in for the kiss. We do know that both individuals here have received all of their vaccinations, and as far as I'm concerned, performing this type of performance is nothing but political theater. And if they genuinely think that they need to still be wearing masks for their PDA, as far as I'm concerned, this means that you do not trust in the vaccine. So Kamala Harris, please stop going full anti-vax. Now, another set of individuals that are obviously going against the anti-vax narrative would be the Bidens. As they go see 90-year-olds with the Carters, they go visit President Carter and his wife Rosalind, and you can see that all four individuals aren't wearing masks. So it makes you wonder, why does Kamala need to wear a mask with her husband when the Bidens don't need to wear one with the Carters? The other thing that's kind of weird is they apparently use a very wide lens, which makes it so the two Carter couple looks like midgets compared to the Bidens. You see that Jill, obviously they're not, the Bidens aren't exactly short, but aren't really tall either. But a weird lensing made it so they look like Smurfs compared to the Bidens. Nonetheless, though, I think the biggest issue here is whether, just the miscommunication between the two groups on whether or not they should be wearing masks or not. Coming from the Boston Globe, I was too scared to tell anyone. In new surveys, 61% of Muslim students say they've been bullied in school. In the article, they say that Yursa, 14, stopped wearing a hijab at her high school when girls spread false rumors that she bragged about being a member of ISIS. When she took off the hijab, a boy told her she still looked like a terrorist. Ali, another Boston area student, faced bullying from a classmate who drew a picture of him as a terrorist at the World Trade Center. Ursa and Ali, whose names were changed for privacy, were two of nearly 200 Massachusetts students surveyed for a recent school climate analysis by the Massachusetts chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations. The report found 61% of Muslim students have been made fun of, verbally insulted, or abused just for being Muslim. So just for reference, this was a study of 200 individuals, so you would expect there to be a pretty large margin of error in the 61% number, right? Well, we look at verywellfamily.com, bullying statistics everyone should know. I think notably what's kind of important here is 49% of children in grades 4 to 12 report being bullied by other students at school at least once during the past month. So what we're seeing here is obviously a difference in 61 to 49. However, the 61 number is the number that we're less sure about because of just this sheer minimal study that was done, and also looking at that it was in a very specific area. However, what we can really get out of this is, a 10% jump really, in my opinion, isn't super significant. Obviously, bullying sucks. We don't want people to be bullied. But I think if we're going to actually tackle an issue like that, we really need to target the actual thing, which is children being bullies in general, rather than just targeting a specific, Muslim-based issue. I know, even in high school, if you're a devout Christian, you'll be called prude. So, are we going to consider that bullying based on religion as well? I think it's really dishonest to say that this is specifically a Muslim issue. Coming from NPR, Facebook ban on Donald Trump will hold social media's oversight board rules. Facebook was justified in its decision to suspend the then President Donald Trump after January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, the company's oversight board said on Wednesday. This is the same thing, in my opinion, as having cops investigate cops. Obviously, they're going to say that it was perfectly fine. That means that the company does not need to reinstate Trump's access to Facebook and Instagram immediately, but the panel said the company was wrong to impose an indefinite ban and said Facebook has 6 months to either restore Trump's account, make his suspension permanent, or suspend him for a specific period of time. Facebook indefinitely suspended Trump's account in January at the mob of his supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol, saying he used his account to incite violent insurrection. Other social networks also kicked off the then president, with Twitter going as far as banning Trump for good. At the time of Mr. Trump's post, there was a clear immediate risk of harm, and his words of support for the individuals in the riots legitimized their violent actions. The Oversight Board wrote an announcement of its decision. Given the seriousness of the violations and the ongoing risk of violence, Facebook was justified in suspending Mr. Trump's account. However, it said Facebook was attempting to avoid its responsibilities by imposing indefinite suspension, which the board slammed as a vague, standardless penalty, and then asking the board to make the final call. The board declines Facebook requests and insists that Facebook apply and justify a defined penalty to the decision set. This last thing is actually something that conservatives have been routinely asking for, is that if you're going to do these types of bans, is you need to be very explicit about what type of conduct is what gets you banned and what the penalty for that is. This type of just hand waving of saying like hateful speech is going to be banned is not an actual way to do this. Where there needs to be a clear intent in your terms of service that says this is what is not allowed on your platform, and if you're creating any type of, in my opinion, TOSs should be considered legal agreement, there needs to be some type of actual contract that both parties need to withhold. Finally, the walls are closing in, coming from MSN News. Judge says Barr misled on how his Justice Department viewed Trump's actions. A federal judge in Washington accused the Justice Department under Attorney General William Barr of misleading her in Congress about advice he had received from top department officials on whether President Donald Trump should have been charged with obstructing the Russia investigation or ordered that a related memo be released. Judge Amy Berman Jackson of the U.S. District Court in Washington said in a ruling late Monday that the Justice Department's obfuscation appeared to be part of a pattern in which top officials like Barr were untruthful to Congress and the public about the investigation. The department had argued that the memo was exempt from public records law because it consisted of private advice from lawyers who Barr had relied on to make the call on prosecuting Trump. But Judge Jackson, who was appointed by President Obama in 2011, ruled that the memo contained strategic advice and that Mr. Barr and his aides had already understood what his decision would be. The fact that he would not be prosecuted was a given, Judge Jackson wrote of Mr. Trump. She also singled out Barr for how he spun the investigation, finding in a letter summarized the 448-page report before it was released, which allowed Trump to claim he had been exonerated. The AG's characterization of what he had hardly had time to skim, much less study closely, prompted an immediate reaction as politicians and pundits took to their microphones and Twitter feeds to decry what they feared was an attempt to hide the ball, Judge Jackson wrote. So, more or less, let's just give a brief summary, is Trump was accused of colluding with Russia. There was no evidence for this Russian collusion, and rightfully, Trump was outraged that the investigation was happening. So they started complaining that this outrage was obstructing the investigation that said that he did not collude with Russia. So now that the Barr is saying that he wasn't going to prosecute because Trump just, was upset that the investigation was happening. As far as I'm concerned, the idea that you can give any type of criminal have any type of criminal issue with obstructing an investigation that finds you innocent is pretty hard to believe in my personal opinion. You can really only obstruct an investigation where you're found guilty. And as far as I'm concerned, any type of outcry that you have of, there being a witch hunt or whatever is, in my opinion, proven by the fact that they did not charge for the actual Russia collusion issue. And this is your May 6th Not So News update. Once again, please like and subscribe if you're looking for daily news content, and have a good one.